Hey, what's up, guys? It's Reed Young, aka Shuda here. I'm going to be reviewing this small spot. It's a €100 buy-in 6 max game, and I wanted to show it to you guys because there's a lot of small spots that happen pretty frequently in Hold'em, and I don't think many people take the time to analyze them, and they make up, the bulk of the game if you really think about it. So if you're trying to add maybe like half a big bet to your win rate, really taking a look at spots like this and breaking them down to be a lot clearer is going to help you out a bunch. So, without further ado, here we go. We're on the button and we raise to €2, and the small blind calls, the big blind folds, getting 5 to 1. So that's pretty interesting. I'd probably note that on him. Maybe he's not the best player in the world. The small blind checks to us on a King 10-6 flop, and we check back. I think every once in a while this play could be fine on the flop to check back for deception. But especially in a min-raised pot, there's just going to be so many combinations that are going to want to at least try to continue against our continuation betting range. So if we bet here, I would expect to get floated or check raise bluffed a lot of the time. And maybe at least at like 100, no limit, not that many people are going to be check raising hands like King 8 and then barreling off for value. So you don't really have to worry about that many hands, check raising and barreling for value. And maybe against a lot of players, you're going to be looking at a pretty unbalanced range there. So if they are barreling off, you can get in some nice hero calls and win some bigger pots. And I think that's a lot of the advantage of min raising is you have to or you get to put your opponents in these marginal spots they're not used to, because I guess everyone over the past year or so has kind of gradually gone from 3xing to min raising in later position. And I feel fairly comfortable saying that it's a fine idea, and there's definitely reasons behind both sides of things. But if you are min raising, you need to realize it's pretty much with the intention of taking advantage of spots like this. So to check back, it's nice because we underrepresent our hand, and we probably induce more than our fair share of bets on the turn and river by our opponent, so we can make some value that way. But you don't need top pair to do that. I mean, you could do it with a hand like 10-3 suited if you had that in your button opening range. Okay, I mean, we can call it like 10-7 suited or something like that if you want to be that particular, and then pretty happily call down. And really the only difference is you block top pair some with a King 4 and not 10-7. But I don't think it's a major deal when we're talking about ranges being that wide. Blockers aren't that big of a deal. So we check back on the flop. Like I said, I don't think it's the best idea, but every once in a while it's fine. And on the turn, we get bet into. So as per our plan of underrepresentation, we call the turn. And on the river, you can see the small blind bets again. And I think the interesting part about this hand is that the river's a 10, and that's really what our hand looks like, either ace high or 10x. No draws got there, and our opponent's betting again. He's also only betting 7 into a 12, which, if we're going to look at this hand from an exploitive point of view, I think it looks like he wants to call a little bit more often than a normal bet size. Also, something to think about is sometimes people type in bet sizes with certain portions of their range, but they'll just bet like a more standard amount with other portions of their range. And I'm not really sure which part of his range that the small blind's doing that with. It's just something to note. So if you called here and saw like 10s full, maybe you could kind of keep that in the back of your head for a future hand. It's just kind of a little strategy nugget for you. But I think I would call here, since we do have basically the top of our range, other than 10s full. we still beat all of the semi-bluffs, and it's not like a terrible river card for him to follow through on if he assumes he's going to be folding out ace high every single time. On the other hand, you could think about it like, okay, I mean, the board texture doesn't change at all, really. I mean, if we weren't going to fold a 10 on the turn, it's unlikely, that we're going to fold it on a blank river. And now on a 10 river, we're certainly not going to fold it. So if he's betting again, it's with the idea of folding out really only ace high, because a king high hand calls, we'll say maybe like half the time. 6x certainly calls, and 10x certainly calls, or raises. So he's really not accomplishing that much with the bluff unless he thinks our range is very weighted toward ace high. So for him to bluff here, continue bluffing, is probably not the best idea if he's just shutting down with a large portion of his range, expecting us just not to fold, which may not be the best play, but I think it's the way a lot of 100 no-limit players play. So with that in mind, his betting range seems stronger. And like we pointed out, the smaller bet size makes his bet seem stronger. So all things considered, I think you could find a fold if we're talking exploitively, but without any reads on a player and with how underrepresented our hand is, even given the situation, I think I would call. And I don't really expect to see a lot of thinner value hands that are slightly better than ours. So we probably are looking at a bit more polarized of a range here. And I'm not sure that most people value bet a hand like a 10 on the turn unless it's ace 10. So if that's the case, we're really looking at a bluff or 6x here a lot of the time, and I think we do pretty well against that range. And we're getting pretty good, odds to call on the river. We don't have to win that often. So, probably about 36% of the time or so. And, I think we have a decent shot of at least breaking even on a call here. So I would call, and the good thing about it is we can definitely take notes on the player and figure out a lot of things from his game. So even if it's a break-even call, we gain a lot from it, and I would definitely rather call than show him that we're going to be folding in spots like this. And also, he's going to think twice in future hands about bluffing us, so that's good because he sees that we check back king 4. Also, it might be a good way to induce some check raise bluffs from him in the future if he thinks we're going to be checking back top pair a lot. And so you can adjust accordingly based on how you believe that player is thinking, or you can just chalk it up to a randomization that you made in your optimal game plan. So I hope you guys like this video. If you do, share it with a poker buddy. I would appreciate it. Take care, guys.